What's up, guys? Simone Fan 101 here, and I have decided to do something a little bit different. Not with the reviews or anything, but with how I make my videos. Okay, so here's what's going on. So clearly it's hard for me to review my videos when my folks are here because, to be fair, I'm a little bit self-conscious because they're not big wrestling fans. They respect it for what it is, but they're not like big fans of it. And especially my dad, because he's a big football guy. You know, football is the last thing I want him to talk with me about because I don't really watch that much football. Same probably with me to him about the wrestling. So what I'm doing is, okay, so my best device for recording is with this computer. It's similar to, you can't see it clearly, but it's similar to the Apple computer, where it's portable. Well, you know, I'm using kind of a portable computer here, except the only difference is it's not Apple. Because it's portable, what I've done is I've taken it into my room, as you might probably remember from watching previous videos of mine, and you know, I'll just bring it in here, record a couple videos, and then put it back out where it was. If by any chance, you know, both my folks are not home and I am, I'll just record in there, in the room you've seen me recording. But when they're home and I want to record and just get shit out of the way, and because you know that's just how I am, I will do that. So that shit's right out of the way. I'm recording this at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, which is actually late in the day, because where I live, you know, it's getting dark really soon, so, you know, trying to do that now, when I still have a little bit of light left for the next couple hours, hour and a half, really, let's face it. But, now I got that shit out of the way, let's get on to what I wanted to talk about. My TLC 2017 review. This show was, by the end of it, a pretty good show. I mean, for the most part, it was actually a pretty damn good show. Probably would not have been if it wasn't for a couple things that happened. Well, a couple people that got out of action. Okay, here's what happened. So there was some, I forget honestly what it was. It may have been like the mumps or something. But Roman Reigns, Bray Wyatt, and his brother, Bo Dallas, all got down with, not diseases, because that's, like, serious, but they got down with serious illnesses, I should say. And they had to be taken off TV. Shitty thing is, up until immediately the week before, you know, that was before the Raw before this, they were building up for 2 matches. They were building up for the recently reunited Shield, with Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, and Dean Ambrose all in their Kevlar gear, against the team of The Miz, The Bar, Sheamus and Cesaro, Kane, and Braun Strowman. Because apparently they wanted to overbook it with shit, and the Shield said that they would take on all comers, no matter how many there are, they will knock him down. And Miz said that they would do that. And so they got Braun Strowman, which, you know, makes sense. He's feuded with Roman Reigns in the past. He probably had issues with Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose already. But with Kane, that was a giant, like, people were like, did not want to see Kane, because because, you know, they didn't want to see him in this kind of role. And it clearly showed in the last couple weeks, with what they're planning to do at the Royal Rumble. By the way, I will be doing my Royal Rumble I hope to do my Royal Rumble contest. If I do not have enough participants, it's probably going to be out. But if I do, I will make the Royal Rumble contest. I want to get these reviews out of the way. At least the main pay-per-views. What's TLC, Survivor Series, and Clash of Champions. That's it. And now that I have the ability to actually record in here every day now, technically, thanks to me doing the strategy, I can actually do that real soon. So, stay tuned for that one. Anyway, opening match. So, oh yeah, I almost forgot. The other match that was scheduled was Bray Wyatt versus Finn Balor again. I mean, like we wanted to see the end of Wyatt and Balor at this point. We're like, why is this feud going on? And for the last several weeks before the pay-per-view, they were teasing that Sister Abigail, it will be more so like Sister Abigail versus Bray Wyatt. Like, what does Sister Abigail look like? And apparently, as it turned out, they were just going to have Bray Wyatt dress in drag as what the Solo Monster would say, Sister Abba Bray. Thank God that did not happen, because I would have hated every inch of that, and I would have set Vince's house on fire. And that would have made a frown turn upside down, but that did not happen, and I'm happy because of it. Anyway, on to the show. The show started out with something else I was actually kind of worried about. Asuka's debut. Asuka debuted in her match, in her main roster match against Emma. Now, Emma previously had been getting some kind of a push, starting to get a couple wins here and there, but still someone who is relatively booked kind of poorly. She won a 5-way match between some of the other women on the roster, excluding Mickie James and Alexa Bliss. So, if I recall correctly, that would be Nia, Alicia, Sasha, and Bayley, and, of course, Emma. And what they would do is, this is part of the 4-way, 5-way matches, the multi-man matches. The WWE's been obsessed with this in this year. But they would determine who the number 1 contender is against Asuka, to face Asuka, I mean. Asuka would debut, and they had a match. And not the kind of match I was hoping for. On one hand, this was actually not a bad match. I actually kind of liked this match because it was a nice quality match for what it was. It went about 9 minutes, it went about 9 minutes, it was a nice little match. The problem, even though it was a nice solid match, the problem with it, this should not have been the kind of match Asuka should debut in. This should have been her 2nd or 3rd pay-per-view match, not the first one. Because even though they briefly did it last year when the brand split first started, apparently they pedaled back, got cold feet, and now they're just feeding already established names to Asuka. Emma here was primarily one of them. Basically, Asuka went 50-50 with someone who has been nothing but portrayed like a loser for the past year and a half or so. Someone who was on the injured list, then someone who who could not work the Emelina gimmick, even though there was nothing wrong with evil Emma to begin with. But yeah, with that said, it's not the end. What they did with Emma, they had the rematch the next night, which even though it was shorter, it was again 50-50, and then they fired Emma like days later. So, kind of a big middle finger to Emma just to say, hey, have this 50-50 match with Asuka. Go out there and perform well. Hey, you're fired. Assholes. Dickwads. Anyway, now that I'm over that shit, this match itself, it was not a bad match. It was a nice little match. Emma worked heat during the match. Asuka worked back. Not really any spots that are really that big. At least not that okay, there was one spot. So while Emma, this is near the end of the match. It was basically a nice back and forth kind of match. To the point where I thought at times Emma had more offense in the match than Asuka. And this one spot here is a prime example of it. Okay, so what happened was Asuka, they fought out to the outside at one point. Asuka was on the apron, and Emma just friggin' pancaked Asuka. She kind of threw her over her head, almost like a Death Valley Driver style, but not really. And she just flattened Asuka on the mat. thankfully didn't last too long, because when they got back in the ring soon after, Asuka spun Emma around a couple times, or just for a second, and got Emma in the Asuka lock, the crossface chicken wing. Which, by the way, I would love me some chicken wings. But it was a nice little match, but not the kind. Again, it was not the kind of match Asuka should have debuted in. It should have because they were building up Asuka like she was this dominating woman in NXT, which she was. She was very much dominated NXT. So if you wanted to debut Asuka, it should have been against a jobber, or even more so, 2 jobbers. Try to get, or just 1 jobber, whatever. But, just feed a jobber to her. Feed her the daily jobber, and not Emma. I guess that they did it only because to give a FU to Emma, because for a few weeks afterward, they fed Asuka jobbers. These people do not know how to book. Next, Elias did one of his songs. Jason Jordan came out, and the first time, what was kind of an amusing segment was Jason Jordan came out with a shopping cart. Where he got the shopping cart, I have no idea. They never explained that. Did he go to the store downtown and just steal one of the shopping carts and buy it off of them, or did he just steal and say, "Hey, I'll come back for this in a couple hours"? And he threw salad at Jason Jordan. Jason Jordan. Yeah, no, he did not throw salad at himself. Jason Jordan threw salad at Elias while Elias was trying to sing one of his songs. It gives new meaning to tossing the salad. No homo. But it was an amusing segment. The only problem is, and I'm just going to skip to later after a couple of matches, they did the same freaking segment. Again, they did the same segment. Where Elias came out to sing with his guitar. Jason Jordan again came out with a shopping cart. This time, I think they were on the stage. I think it's the only difference was that they were on the stage. But that time it was like, okay, that's just not amusing because you already did it the first time. Not too funny the second time, that same night, maybe an hour and a half later, or an hour later, whatever. Anyway, out next was one of the 2 cruiserweight matches, something we usually don't see on a pay-per-view. It was Brian Kendrick and heel gentleman Jack Gallagher against Rich Swann and Cedric Alexander. And what was, admittedly, a good match. It was actually a nice, solid match. Now, the cruiserweights aren't known for having great matches in the main roster because of how they book the main roster. Gotta do your headlocks. Screw that. It's not what made the Cruiserweight Classic so good. And when there were headlocks, that actually mattered. You don't just do a headlock for the sake of doing a headlock and passing time. Or however else they book it. And just another thing, just real quick, and I know I'm making this longer than it really needs to be, but I'm not a fan of this heel gentleman Jack Gallagher. I like what they were doing with Jack during this feud with Brian Kendrick when he was still a babyface, where gentleman Jack Gallagher was being a little bit more serious, coming out and trying to murder Brian Kendrick half the time. Actually fighting him like in a fight, like a fist fight. And I kind of like that. Like, okay, Jack Gallagher a little bit more serious side. I like this. Then he turned heel for no reason whatsoever other than to swerve us. So, even though he was feuding with Brian Kendrick, so, fuck you, WWE. Anyway, but what about the match itself? Again, match was actually pretty solid. I actually like this better than the Asuka match, because unlike, for the time that they had, which was 8 minutes, I looked up, for the time that they had, they did more in this match than they did in the other match. This was the kind of match they needed to have. Asuka and Emma, not the kind of match that Asuka needed to have. Things started off, very quickly. Cedric Alexander doing an over-the-top rope dive to Kendrick and Gallagher, landing right on his feet, no less. So, yeah, the athleticism of this guy. This is why he was hired in the first place during that match, after that match with Kota Ibushi. Go check that match out. That was the best match of that entire tournament. You know, Brian Kendrick at one point did a belly-to-belly suplex, I think, to Rich Swann on the outside of the mat. That had to suck for I keep saying Rich Swann. Brian Kendrick had the control of Cedric for a while. Even gave him a super kick at one point, which we never see Brian Kendrick give super kicks, so that was actually surprised me. And well, this one little spot I really did like, though. And I'm only naming the spots. Brian Kendrick had all the spots. Jack Gallagher didn't do all that much in this match compared to the other three, but, you know, he did his part. Yeah. So Brian Kendrick had Cedric Alexander in the captain's hook. They were near the corner. So what happened was, this was actually a nice spot. What happened was, while he had him, Kendrick did, in the captain's hook, Rich Swann came right the hell out of nowhere and gave Brian Kendrick a Phoenix Splash. That was actually a nice spot. Match ended when Cedric Alexander gave Brian Kendrick the lumbar check, which, God, that move actually does look kind of devastating the way Alexander does it. And yeah, that was the end of the match. Gallagher didn't do all that much of this match, but he did his part. The main stars of this match in some ways were Alexander, Kendrick, and by the end of it, Swann. But that's not a bad thing. They did their parts in the match. They ended up having a pretty good good match. Better than the opening, I think. Next was another good match with a somewhat shitty story. So it was Alexa Bliss defending the Raw Women's Championship against Mickie James. And this was the first match that went over 10 minutes. The basic story was Mickie James had come back to the WWE the year prior. First in the NXT TakeOver match with Asuka, which I thought was really good. And then as part of the La Luchadora story on SmackDown, helping Alexa Bliss win the SmackDown Women's title. Sorry. But then they broke up because, you know, Alexa Bliss is kind of a bitch in character. But story leading up to it was not about how Mickie James was brought back by Alexa Bliss. They did reference that. The main story was that, and this seems to be a recurring trend, booking Mickie James to look like shit even though people love her. They did it years ago, back in 2009, 2010, with that Piggy James story. What a fucking retarded story that was. With hilariously enough, it was by a woman. It was a storyline that the heel in this case, which was Michelle McCool at the time, at one point was deemed so skinny that I think she actually had to get like a checkup by a doctor. She was too skinny. And yeah, she made fun of Mickie James for being fat. She was not fat. She had gained a tad little bit of weight that she lost pretty much immediately. Well, this was a similar deal. Alexa Bliss, the entire story, was making fun of, over and over again, how old Mickie James is. How old she is. Man, you're so old, Mickie James. Like, I remember you back in, these days and right here, and the hillbillies and all that shit. I don't know what she was talking about anymore, because honestly, I don't care to remember. But I hated it. I hated it because it just sucked, and it made no sense. And even Mickie James said that straight up. I think it was like in an interview, or like a Raw Fallout, or something like, with the post-Raw shows, where you're allowed to talk on your own and not be scripted. Mickie James even straight up said she's not even the oldest woman on the main roster. That distinction has to go to Tamina and Stephanie McMahon. Tamina is almost 40. Stephanie actually is 40. She's not even the oldest woman on the main roster, yet they're making fun of her for being too old. What a bunch of fucking morons. As you can see, my anger in this show is astounding. And it's not because of the show quality itself. But the stories leading up to the show was complete garbage. Not garbage, garbage. Sorry about that. Anyway, You know, I just had to... So Alexa Bliss, this was actually what I thought was a nice, decent little match. Again, this, it was another one of those cases where these two had a good match. I do think that, because the first 3 matches I all give the same rating, which is 3 stars. Out of all the matches that I thought were good, I do think that the Cruiserweight Tag Team match was the best. This would probably be second behind the Asuka match, and the Asuka match would be third in terms of how the quality, but that doesn't mean that match wasn't bad. But this match right here, I thought was a really good match. Early in the match, to make fun of how small she is and how baby-like she is, because remember, for a while in NXT, Alexa Bliss had the nickname of Baby Trish. Alexa was in the ropes. Mickie trying to do the take her down. Instead, she straight up slapped Alexa Bliss's ass, which I thought was both hilarious and admittedly kind of hot. So, sorry. Anyway, but Alexa Bliss, she didn't take kindly to that. There was another, little thing I kind of liked when she tried to take Mickie James down by the hair. Mickie did an immediate kip up, and then she took Alexa Bliss down, and then kicked her right in the face. Although, part of the story of this match was they were working over Mickie's arm. Her left arm, she had attacked earlier in the match, Alexa Bliss did. But Mickie James fought back, and she looked good here. This was a nice little match that Mickie James had. And, par for the course, because Mickie James, of course, is good. Mickie James went to the top rope at one point. Alexa Bliss, I think, she either hit the rope or attacked the arm. I forget what it was. But anyway, she knocked her down, and Mickie landed right on her left, quote, injured arm. Alexa Bliss went up top, went for a Twisted Bliss. Mickie James then responded by hitting a top rope drop kick, which was nice, but she did not. But it was kind of wonky looking because she landed awkwardly, but thankfully she was fine. She tried to get Alexa. Alexa shoved her into the middle turnbuckle head first, hit the DDT, and Alexa won. It was basically this very similar to how Alexa won her first women's title against Raw women's title against Bayley earlier this year at Extreme Rules not Extreme Rules, at Payback. Not Payback, Backlash. No, what was Payback? Got all these pay-per-views, man. Gotta remember them. But at Payback, when she shoved Bayley into the bottom rope and then hit a DDT, did the same thing here with Mickie James. So Mickie James put over Alexa Bliss, which was the right thing to do. I didn't think Mickie James was winning here. Now, next match was, again, not that bad of a match. Now, the show went down in quality here, because we started out with 3 nice, solid, good matches, which the best of which I thought was the Cruiserweight match. Ironically enough, the point that the show dipped down just a little bit was a Cruiserweight match. It was Kalisto defending the WWE Cruiserweight Championship against Enzo Amore. I suspected it was probably going to be Neville or somebody else going for the title, but then Neville said, "Fuck this, I don't want to work with Enzo anymore," and bailed. So, in a kind of a rash decision, they put the title on Kalisto in a lumberjack match on Raw. He was champion for all of maybe 2 weeks leading up to the pay-per-view. And I'm not going to break any nose about it. Enzo won. So, of course, because it was an Enzo match, the show went down. But admittedly, it was not that bad of a match. I mean, it was not good, okay? It was not a good match. But it wasn't a complete horrible piece of shit. This was This was kind of below average, but it wasn't horrible. Because Kalisto, he certainly tried. And admittedly, Kalisto came out with a admittedly pretty badass looking mask. But next, Kalisto and Enzo. Enzo kind of worked. He didn't work Keith for a while, but he was trying to show off. Yeah, Kalisto quickly took over, but then what happened was Kalisto was trying to do something. Enzo was on the apron. Kalisto was trying to do something. Then Enzo knocked Kalisto off of the turnbuckle, because he was on the inside of the ring. Enzo was on the outside. Referee was trying to say, get him out of there, or get him in the ring, or whatever the hell it was, allowing Enzo to just drop Kalisto headfirst on the turnbuckle, which, by the way Kalisto saw it, it must have hurt like shit. Well, maybe it looked like it hurt like shit. It didn't really last too long. This was a relatively short match. This match lasted all of 8 minutes, which was 5 minutes too long. But yeah, Enzo certainly tried. Well, not Enzo. Kalisto certainly tried. Enzo, half the time, it almost felt like he was fucking up on purpose. The only times he usually tries is when he does that top to middle rope DDT move, which he hit it on Kalisto, but I don't think he got the pin. And I honestly, believe it or not, I honestly forget the finish. I think what happened, if I'm recalling correctly, what happened is Enzo went for the eye, and may have wonked with Kalisto's mask, but I honestly forget. So feel free to comment down below to remind me what the finish was, because I don't care to remember. But Enzo rolled them up while he was either distracted or hurt or whatever. Rolled up Kalisto for the fluke win, so to speak. Much like at No Mercy. And Enzo is your new Cruiserweight Champion. Not the worst decision, because Enzo certainly brought eyes to the 205 Live show, but definitely something to kind of look down upon, because Enzo is not that good. He's not that good. But it was not that good of a match, but it wasn't the worst thing in the world. It was certainly a lot better than how they booked that match between Enzo and Neville. No Mercy. Thank Lord. Next up was something that we didn't think we might see until maybe WrestleMania, or until Styles went over to the Raw brand, which it's going to happen at some point, because you know Vince McMahon can't wait to get his grubby hands on Styles, put him on Raw, and just have him go out and probably lose Roman Reigns. Let's face it. But next up was AJ Styles versus Finn Balor. And it was Demon Finn Balor. It was not regular old leather jacket Finn Balor. This match, let's break no bones about it. This match was fucking awesome. This match was amazing. This match killed it. And what I liked about it is that there was no story here. There was no doing heat on each other for any reason, because story demanded it. So it was just these two guys went out there for about 20 or so minutes to have a great match, and that is exactly what happened. And keep in mind, AJ Styles was on a tour to Argentina, and just flown there flown back to the arena to face Balor that day. Styles. So Styles, did have a little bit of what you would call jet lag. He wasn't completely rested. If this is what a match between Finn Balor and a not too well rested AJ Styles actually looks like, I shudder to think how great of a match they would have when AJ Styles was fully rested and they have weeks to prepare instead of hours. But this match was amazing. What can I say? It was great back and forth action. These two guys, they know how to work their styles. They both worked New Japan. Both had great success in New Japan. Made sense. Early on, it was not too many in the way of spots, but that didn't matter, because these two guys were great wrestlers. The first major spot I can remember, not a spot. Finn Balor went for a dive over the top rope, because Styles was outside. Styles came in and just clobbered Balor. He took control for a little bit. Styles And there was a nice little spot. Styles was on top of one of the turnbuckles, or he was against one of the turnbuckles. Balor went to charge. Styles kicked him and got himself over the top rope on one of the apron. And instead of doing a phenomenal forearm, kind of like what he does when he does a dive outside, he flings himself over the top rope to deliver an elbow to either a kneeling or a sitting Finn Balor. I forget which one he was doing, but it doesn't really matter. Styles took control, and then they had their nice little back and forth forearms to each other, something that Styles and Kazuchika Okada did regularly in their matches, and I think he may have, and even Styles did in his match with Nakamura. Styles was at one point knocked out to the outside after getting the hell beat out of him by Balor. But he was knocked to the outside. Balor went for his over the top rope tope, so at least he finally got his in. There was a point when they both went outside, right? So, there was another point I had to mention where Finn Balor, because we've seen Jinder Mahal do those springboard knees. Balor does it too, but with an actual boot, and my man, does he make it look savage. Styles went for the God, what was it? The calf crusher. Balor but Balor got out of it by pulling a Brock Lesnar a month before Brock Lesnar did it and just ramming Styles' head into the mat. Styles went for a phenomenal forearm. Balor countered and knocked him outside. Took control on the outside for a little while. Even drop kicked him into one of the barricades. Styles immediately countered by getting Balor in like a spine buster kind of position and just barreling him over the announce table. Both of them were back in the ring came on the ring at the same time. I think either at the 8 or 9 count. And then they went back to beating the shit out of each other. Styles, okay, here's one, and this is kind of where I think the unrest comes in. Because what happened was, Styles went for his normal AJ Styles combo. He does the kick, does the Aja Kong spinning back fist, and then he goes for that clothesline. Well, here's what happened. Either Balor didn't react enough, or Styles was actually going too fast and just didn't remember to kind of slow it down. He went for the clothesline. Balor went for the Pele kick, because remember, Balor went for his style Pele kick. But what happened was, I think Styles may have, went forward just a little bit too much and Balor kind of missed his head, but that doesn't really matter because, and yeah, there were 1 or 2 sloppy spots in this match, but consider the fact that Styles was considerably tired, even because about being pulled in the last minute, and on top of that, not only was he tired, on top of that, just because there's a couple sloppy parts in the match doesn't mean the match isn't great. I mean, look at John Cena and CM Punk at Money in the Bank 2011. That was one of the best matches of the past decade. And that match had a couple sloppy spots as well. So don't give me that bullshit argument that, oh, it's sloppy, it doesn't mean not great. Bullshit. Styles went for Bloody Sunday. And Finn Balor went for the inverted, I was going to say inverted atomic drop. He did not go for an inverted atomic drop. He went for it wasn't Bloody Sunday he hit. Because I know some people said it's Bloody Sunday. It's not Bloody Sunday. It was that rising move where he lands on his back, on the back of his neck and his back more so than Bloody Sunday. Bloody Sunday is the double hook brainbuster. That's Bloody Sunday. No, Finn Balor hit the TK19 or something like that. Whatever the hell it was called. I honestly forget the name of that move. These number moves. Finn Balor kicked him in the corner, went for the coup de grace. Styles countered with a Pele kick, and then got him with another kind of sloppy. It wasn't sloppy, but it was sloppy in the fact that it didn't look completely right. But at the same time, it looked brutal. Styles went for a top rope Hurricane Rana, springboard Hurricane Rana on Balor. And while it wasn't the most beautifully executed, man, did it look savage. went for the pin. Styles went for the springboard 450. Yeah, he went for the springboard 450 splash. Balor got out of the way. Kicked Styles in one of the corners and got the coup de grace and kind of stayed there for a second, which means it looked brutal. And 1, 2, 3, the match was over. I didn't expect AJ Styles to win here because he's a SmackDown guy on a Raw show. Before the whole Raw vs. SmackDown thing had happened again. So yeah, Balor won, which was the right choice. And then they both, and I like this moment, I think the crowd did too, both of them went for a too sweet sign. Because remember, both were leaders of the Bullet Club at different points. In fact, the night Balor left New Japan, Styles came in. So that was, yeah. So they had too sweet, and I think crowd certainly liked it. I certainly liked it. It was a nice little moment. And honestly, Balor could use the Bullet Club right now because the way they're booking him right now against Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel this past month, wrestling nobodies like Kurt Hawkins, man, that guy needs. Anderson and Gallows aren't doing anything. Give Anderson and Gallows to Balor. They'll figure something out. Next up was the culmination of the feud all night, which was, of course, Jason Jordan and Elias. Haha, I fooled you, hopefully. Jordan went for his mat wrestling game early, which is always a pleasure to see because very rarely do we see people go for the mat wrestling game. We saw Kurt Angle do it back in the day, but we don't have many Kurt Angles in the world. We only have one, sadly. So both of them it was not even that bad of a match. They had what I thought was a decent little match. This was a mediocre match, but it wasn't bad. Elias hit what kind of looked somewhat like it wasn't that great of a knee, but he had a knee into the back of Jason Jordan. Jason Jordan, this part was savage, hitting his head against the middle turnbuckle. Man, everyone's hitting their heads against the turnbuckles all night. Just realize that. Jeez. Hopefully there's a spot there they won't hit the turnbuckles. Elias basically worked heat for a little while. It was just it was a little back and forth match. It was not as good as the opening matches, or definitely not as good as Styles and Balor. Not a chance in hell. This didn't have a chance of following Styles or Balor. Jason Jordan came back with a babyface comeback that, of course, the crowd booed. Charged him in the turnbuckles, hit suplex after suplex on him, hit, eventually, sorry, this match is just, clearly did not excite me, as you can see. Jason Jordan didn't even win clean, with a clean, nice babyface finish. He got Elias up with a roll-up. I repeat, he got Elias with a roll-up. God damn it. All the things. Of course, now, thank Lord, they're building towards a heel turn for Jason Jordan, which is a good thing. Either that or Vince McMahon truly has lost his mind. Next, we had The Shield. Or should I say, Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose and Kurt Angle versus Strowman, Kane, Miz, and The Bar, Sheamus and Cesaro. Sorry about that. I just had to... sorry, I am a tad bit tired. But I'm willing to get through this. I'm willing to bite the bullet. But earlier in the night, I did like this. Kurt Angle, was gifted a Kevlar vest, by The Shield. So now he's wearing Roman Reigns' vest. Let's hope that doesn't have any mumps on it. And Kurt Angle did the Shield entrance with Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, which I thought was awesome. Now, early in the match, they kept on hitting people with chairs. Rollins and Ambrose did, and even Angle. They beat the shit out of people with chairs, including Kane, even though Kane's like 50 years old, so there were moments where I feared for his life. Rollins, and this was a great match, just so you know. Rollins and Ambrose did dives. They were just beating the hell out of people with ladders and chairs. They knocked Kane and Strowman to the outside. They beat the hell out of them with ladders and chairs. Got the bar out of the way. Even and at several points ramming Braun Strowman in the steel ring posts twice. So again, Braun running into things, nothing new. Then what happened was Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose set up ladders on the outside. They placed both Kane and Braun Strowman on the separate announce tables. And Rollins and Ambrose climbed up the ladders, and they basically did dives off the top of the ladders. They weren't terribly tall ladders, but they were tall. And they did, Rollins hit a frog splash, Ambrose hit an elbow. I actually wouldn't be surprised. I think he hit it with a steel chair. Ambrose did. And I would not be surprised that Ambrose's current injury is because of that. Maybe it was. Maybe he just hit an elbow and it was fine. I don't know. But at one point they took control. You know, it was a nice little spot, but they took control. Angle, of course, hit more people with chairs, but it did take Rollins and Ambrose out of the equation momentarily, because that's when the bar came in, the Miz came in. They were gonna do a mock Shield triple power bomb on Kurt Angle. That did not happen when Ambrose and Rollins came in to intervene. Angle hit his glorious his glorious German suplexes. Kane sat up because apparently they're trying to buy the fact that he's a monster even though he's 50. Kurt Angle actually held his own against Kane for a moment. I had flashbacks to their 2001 SmackDown match, which was considerably better than their exchange here. Braun Strowman then attacked Angle, brought him outside, hit a somewhat protected. And keep in mind, Kurt Angle's not that young himself. He's only slightly younger than Kane, but he had a somewhat protected, tried to protect him as much as he can, but he hit a running power slam through a table that was set up on the outside between the ring and the barricade. So that took Angle out of much of the match. Ambrose and Rollins tried to attack. This match, by the way, went on for like 35 minutes, and it was not long after it that this part of the match showed. Basically, the heel teams worked heat for God knows how long on Ambrose and Rollins, to the point where there were moments when the match actually died. In the ring, they tried to fight, Rollins and Ambrose did, but the numbers were just too much against them. But this is when the story comes into play, as it comes to now. That's been playing for a couple months now, as apparently so. Braun Strowman was attacking one of the members. Either that or just was in the way. Kane was attempting to hit, I think, Ambrose with a steel chair. Or it may have been Rollins. I honestly forget. Point being, Shield member ducked. Kane accidentally hit Braun Strowman in the back with a steel chair. Clearly did not make Braun happy. Braun shoved him aside. Miz tried to break it up, but then Ambrose and Rollins went back in the attack and things went as normal. There was a spot they kind of fucked up. So, okay, so one of the big moves that the bar does is they do a double Razor's Edge to anybody, really. But they do a double Razor's Edge, which I kind of like, because we don't see the Razor's Edge anymore, and that makes me sad. They had a double Razor's Edge on Ambrose. So he was going to go through a steel chair that was set up in the ring. Problem is, the landing was... They didn't really do anything to actually shove Ambrose through the table, and the table did not break. So, yeah, that was kind of a fuck-up right there. Thankfully, they made good by having Braun Strowman shove Ambrose through what I believe was actually the same table set up in the ring. Just shoved him in the corner. The Miz called for a garbage truck, like a garbage compactor truck. If you've seen the original Ninja Turtles movie back in 1990, this is the same kind of truck that the Shredder was crushed in when Casey pulled it and said, oops. So, I guess they were trying to kill the Shield. You bastards. But Ambrose and Rollins fought back. They all hit. They hit dives off the top of the garbage compactor, which I kind of liked. They went after the Miz because the Miz tried to run away because for the moment he had no allies. So being a little bitch, tried to run away. Ambrose and Rollins tried to get him. Kane went on the attack. I think at another point in this match, and at some point right before this, Kane, Braun Strowman had accidentally hit Kane. Went back to their shoving. This may have been when Ambrose and Rollins fought back out of the garbage compactor. I honestly forget, but anyway, the point is, it played later in the match because they were trying to do a double. The Shield was trying to do a double suplex to Kane on the stage. Braun saves his ass, and then not too long later, after kicking their asses, Braun gets attacked by Kane to the point where Kane throws a choke slam on Braun Strowman through the stage, and then a la John Cena, Wade Barrett from TLC 2010, Kane takes down a bunch of chairs onto Braun Strowman on the cage. They don't actually see him hit Strowman because probably he's not in the way. But yeah, they tried to portray Kane as this monster, like even though he's 50 and people were sick of him in the main event role. Kane hit a double choke slam to Ambrose and Rollins on the stage. I think they were going to put him back in the garbage compactor or going to pin him or something. Braun, looking like he came right out of hell, got up. Miz tried to calm him down. Miz ended up getting shoved through one of the screens of the stage. Not shoved completely through it. Attacked Kane. The Bar came out. The Bar, who was on the ground momentarily, attacked Braun. Miz attacked Braun. They threw Braun in the garbage compactor, and I think turned on the garbage compactor, trying to kill Braun Strowman. Keynote, don't try to kill Braun Strowman, because he is a monster. He will murder you. They took control. They went back in the ring. They went back to ringside. Back in the ring. They took control. Trying to get the pin and all that shit. Beating the hell out of Rollins and Ambrose. Kurt Angle came back out to his music, still in the Kevlar vest, not in his wrestling tights. Cesaro Cesaro and Sheamus came out to fight him. Our Angle backdropped Cesaro, which was nice. Then he gave Angle slams to both Cesaro and Sheamus. He hit Sheamus on the floor, and Cesaro threw a table on the outside, which the way Angle did the move and Cesaro sold it was just awesome. Angle came back in, tried to attack Kane. Rollins came to his aid, hit Kane with a chair to the back as Kane was trying to do the tombstone pile driver. By the way, those Angle slam spots essentially took the Bar out of the match. Kane was on the outside. They got Kane to the outside, the Shield did. Rollins and Ambrose did like a double spear, or mainly shoved Kane through the barricade, through the timekeeper's area barricade. Miz tried to take control, hit Angle in the ring with a skull-crushing finale. That didn't work. Went for a second one. Angle countered. Went for a ankle lock. Miz got out of it, but then realized he was immediately screwed because Braun. They turned their back on Braun, put him in the garbage compactor. Sheamus and Cesaro were taken out of the game by Angle, and Kane was taken out of the game by Rollins and Ambrose. So, Miz in the middle of the ring. He's thoroughly screwed. Then Seth Rollins hits they surround the ring. The Shield does with Kurt Angle, Shield style, the way they usually do it when they were hunting their prey. Seth Rollins hit the Kingslayer knee onto the Miz. Ambrose then got the Dirty Deeds. Angle got the Angle slam, and then they did the Shield powerbomb with Kurt Angle playing the spot of Roman Reigns, and got the 1-2-3 and won the match with a nice feel-good win. Overall, it was actually a great match. It did drag during the Heat segment, but aside from that, it was a great match. There was nothing I could say about it other than the fact it was a great match. Overall, this was a good show that was saved by people being put on the shelf. And I'm not one to condone people, I hope this guy gets hurt. I don't hope for anybody to get hurt. But if there's any consolation, it's the fact that we got a great pay-per-view out of it. Now, to be fair, we probably would have gotten a better match if Roman Reigns was in here. But the fact that we got Kurt Angle and him entering with the Shield during their music and wearing the vest and everything and being the one to hit the triple power bomb, and I mean, you got to admit, you probably would not take that back. I wouldn't take it back. I don't care if we would have ended up getting a better match with Roman Reigns. I'll take this match still because it's freaking Kurt Angle, and I'll take it. So that's my TLC 2017 review. Really good pay-per-view. You should check it out. 3 good matches to start the pay-per-view. One great match to end the show. One absolutely amazing match, like a match of the year contender type match. For Styles and Balor. Yeah, somewhat disappointing matches with Jason Jordan, Elias, and especially Kalisto and Enzo, but you're not all winners here. Overall, good match, good show, great match at the end. Next time, I will see you probably immediately following my upload of this video, the Clash of Champions match between... The Clash of Champions match. What am I talking about? God, I really need to take my meds or something, even though I don't even take meds. But next up is my Survivor Series pay-per-view review, which just happened last month. So, with that said, guys, be well, stay safe, have a good day. I'll see you next time with my Survivor Series pay-per-view review. Until next time, guys, peace. I will see you next video. Bye-bye.